And what usually happens at the beginning of Ramadan, we're all so busy, so stressed, we're so tired. Even though we try so hard to be really present in the month of Ramadan, it's so difficult, especially younger people maybe who are working in stressful jobs and doing other things. And we usually approach Ramadan in that state of mind. And then what happens? We get all this other, I will sort of say, stressful things that are told in Ramadan. Make sure you do this, do all these du'as, do all these things, do your journal, do this, do that. And then really, you sort of start the month thinking, oh, I'm exhausted and I haven't really started, right? So, what I always say is, we need to exhale. All of that is there. We're not actually told to do all of those things, what people recommend. We don't have to go along with other people's ideas of what we need to be doing. Because Ramadan, really, at a very basic level, is a very straightforward thing. It's very personal. Ramadan is about us, and Allah gives it to us as a gift for us to re-find ourselves, recenter ourselves. And this is what we give at the madrasa that we run in Wembley. We give the children, the families, a very sort of, everything is about intention for us as Muslims. And, keep it simple. I usually say 3 things. One thing, do one thing really well. 2 or 3 things, try and do well. Just focus and keep Ramadan not to be a burden, because I realized for myself, after many years of grand intentions at the beginning of Ramadan, always feeling like a complete failure at the end, when I most probably did 10% really well if I was really lucky, right? So therefore always say keep it focused, and really I think the intentions for Ramadan is look within yourself, look what you need as succor for this month, rather than what other people are telling you. And this is, I think, what the focus should be. And I really like this hadith that we have, because there's more to it than just reading those words. And even outside of Ramadan, this is really a process. Because let's say we want to change something tomorrow. Let's say somebody says, I'm going to give up sugar, let's say. That's my big vice, right? And sometimes the intention, it starts with the intention, but you can't do it right away. So you sow the seeds, and then maybe later down the line, you add to it, you irrigate those intentions until you can really take it seriously. So this is the lead up that we have to Ramadan, is that we know that we start off with Rajab. We're sort of saying, Ramadan is coming, Ramadan, we've got to prepare, our intentions start. We sow the seeds of our intentions in Ramadan. And then Shaban, as time gets closer, we have other sort of spiritual things that we do, but we irrigate those intentions. We try to put more meaning into it, and we try to strengthen it. And this effort that we make leading up to Ramadan is what we harvest in this month, right? So in a sense, we should come into it with a little bit of preparation to think what we really want to get out of it. And what I really want to focus on is the importance of the 30 days. As we know, both 30 days and 40 days are periods of time that are seen as healing, right? For example, after a baby's born, the mother recuperates for 40 days, somebody dies, you have 40 days, and then 30 days also in Islamic traditions, another numbers of which you do something consistently, and of course Ramadan is part of that. What we are being told more and more these days, that when you do something consistently for 30 days, it has very powerful psychological, behavioral and spiritual benefits. Even if all you're doing is the intention, and you keep that intention going for 30 days, you're sort of reprogramming the way you think. And then if you add on to that what other things that you can do, of course then you get more of the benefit. And Ramadan is also about developing a new habit or improving a skill, so that these 30 days inshallah gives us some kind of lasting transformation. So about rewiring the brain, science shows us that takes about 21 to 66 days to form a new habit. And 30 days is a strong foundation, okay? It sort of strengthens our neural pathways to sort of instinctively do some of those things. For example, certainly immediately after Ramadan, we're still not used to eating, and we still have that guilty conscience when we're eating that wrong thing, and we still keep all those good habits going. And so, but if you're like me, it sort of dissipates after a little while, so we have to keep the whole purpose of this discipline that we get in Ramadan is at towards the end of it we make the intention to keep it going as much as we can, because we know by the time Rajab comes again, we're all saying to ourselves, oh my God, I didn't make use of all that time, of all the benefit I did. But Allah knows this, right? This is not something that we should chastise ourselves. Allah knows that we are human. He created us after all, and He knows that we are forgetful, and He knows that we are busy in our lives. He knows that we have so many challenges. So this is why then Ramadan comes along and goes, okay, let's start again. So really it's a sort of reset button that we are given every year. And of course, we know that it's also about discipline and self-control. I want to say a little bit more about that because I was just telling a story earlier. Some years ago, a friend of ours wanted to really experience the Jummah prayers. And my husband took him to Regent's Park Mosque for the Jummah. And he was so impressed with, he wasn't a Muslim, just to be clear, of the discipline that came with the prayers. Everybody knew what to do, they knew how to line up, they knew the action, they knew everything. But he said that he was really surprised that immediately the prayers finished, the discipline went, right? And there was people all over the place, even a few scuffles and all that kind of stuff. And I think one of the things that we have to improve on as an ummah overall is if we say that our rituals, especially like Ramadan, is about building self-control, let us, there's a hadith which says every step you take towards salah is a blessing, there's reward. So every step we take away from salah, we take away from Ramadan, or we take away from good action is also a blessing. So we have to keep that in mind. It's about discipline, it's about self-control, right? As we all know, most people think that, oh God, you're not eating for 30 days and, even no water is the phrase that goes around every Ramadan, that meme that goes around. But this 30-day rule for breaking habits is something that we really need to take more seriously about our personal bad habits. There's no point in me telling any of you here to do what I'm really bad at. You have to understand and look within and see what is your personal bad habit or thing that you want to strengthen and things that you want to improve on over these 30 days. And of course, apart from self-control, there's our emotional and spiritual growth. And I often hear people saying that Ramadan is so emotionally draining for them because this deprivation and this sacrifice that we make does trigger things for us sometimes, right? We suddenly, other things come up, other things that we have to face, right? But what we do during that month is that we learn that, okay, we acknowledge those things that may come up, but we learn to be patient about it. We draw on gratitude. We use these 30 days during Ramadan to realize that this deprivation that we have for 30 days possibly may bring up for some of us other things, right? And we also have that chance to build our emotional strength, to build our deep insecurities that we may possibly have. So the question is, how did we all invest in this Ramadan? And there's no set answer. Everybody in this room will have to answer this question in themselves. The most obvious things that we're used to is we know mosques do the prayers, they do the Taraweeh, there's so many events for iftar nowadays. We know that these are things that are there increasingly, and we have to be grateful that more and more things are available for us as Muslims. But we have to also think beyond that. And what I want to share Next is a little diagram that is done by my teacher, Sheikh Halima Krausen, which I like to use as a litmus test for myself. Because what usually happens is that if we see here, we usually put Allah here in the middle. I'm being very technical with this thing today. And of course it's right to put Allah in the middle. But when we put Allah in the middle, then it all becomes about worship and ibadah, which is of course right. But when we read the Quran and we follow the Sunnah, whatever, if we put ourselves in the center, then it directly talks to us, right? Because then if we read the Quran, all these things that are around here, this is what the Quran is actually made up of. What does the Quran tell us? It tells us about many things. We learn about creation and other human beings, other sort of living beings, and it tells us about ourselves. So we draw from what we are learning in the Quran, what we're reading, what we're trying to learn from it, is that we have a responsibility as oops, what did I do? There. That we have a responsibility to all of these things. It's not just about us. We are important and our ibadah to Allah is important and we have to be responsible for that. But we also have a responsibility for all of those things. For example, I would say, I'm a very city person. I've lived in London all my life. I'm sort of lived around concrete most of it. So I'm not that great on creation, right? I don't go out into the green that much. And I really know that I should. I really know for my well-being I should do that more. But I'm a very sociable person with other people. I see people a lot. So I see where am I? Maybe I'm over-socializing. Maybe I'm doing too much of it. Maybe I need to step back a little bit, focus on myself. So therefore I find this quite a useful little mechanism to seeing where I am in myself. And also, of course, how am I when I get into Ramadan? What part of this do I really want to focus on and strengthen? And as we know, Allah tells us, we sent down of the Quran that which is a healing and a mercy for those who have faith. So it's very easy just to sort of hear such things and say it's a healing, but we don't know how to make it a healing, right? So what I've sort of tried to already say is that, Islam is not sort of the Quran is not like a stone that's just there. It's a living kitab. It's a living book. That's why it's called Quran. It lives. It's alive, and its message is alive. So we have to see when we draw on it. We draw many things, but if the Quran is telling us it's a healing and a mercy, right? We need to look at that carefully, especially for ourselves. And of course, that also can apply to the wider community, the wider world, and all that. But it really should start with ourselves, because if we can't help ourselves, how can we help other people? And so the purpose of fasting and God's nearness, okay? And when my servants ask you concerning me, indeed I am near. I respond to the invocation of the supplicant when he calls upon me. So let them respond to me and believe in me that they may be guided, right? So this is the month of the Quran. Inshallah, maybe it's Laylatul Qadr tonight. And, and overall the purpose is to know Allah, to be obedient to Allah, if you want to say that, and to get strength from it, okay? And as we know, what the Ramadan is about, fasting, O you who have believed, fasting has been prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, that you may attain taqwa, consciousness of God, okay? And then a little thought about what taqwa is, because there's so many different explanations of this if you look it up, right? And it's a very central concept in Islam. And sometimes people say it's obedience, some people say other things, fear of Allah, sometimes people say that. But I tend to like to say that the translations people give, that it's more about God consciousness, piety or mindfulness of Allah, right? We approach taqwa in that sense. And it comes from the root word waqqa, which means to protect or to shield, right? In an Islamic sense, taqwa is the awareness of Allah that leads a person to avoid sin and do good, okay? So, there's many practical ways that we can develop taqwa: self-awareness, mindful worship, avoiding sin, seeking forgiveness, remembering death and the afterlife. So these are all ways of strengthening our taqwa. But how does taqwa relate to Ramadan? And Ramadan is specially linked to taqwa, okay? Fasting has been prescribed for you so that you may attain taqwa. So this is what we are trying to make, this connection between God consciousness and Ramadan, which is, in a sense, what I'm trying to say is a methodology in a way for us of dealing with our inner complexities and turning more strongly to Allah, right? So we should try and let this month heal us, okay? Intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, in whatever ways that we feel that we need. And as I said, Ramadan is the month of the Quran, the month of Ramadan in which the Quran was revealed, a guidance for people and clear proofs of guidance and criterion. So whoever cites the month, let him fast it, and whoever is ill or on a journey, then an equal number of other days. Allah intends for you ease and does not intend for you hardship, and for you to complete the period and to glorify Allah for that which He has guided you, and perhaps you will be grateful. And when I was younger, or when I first started getting into understanding Islam, it was very hard. And if you were around in the 80s, you would know that everything was really harsh. And I found it actually, and I remember my first teacher when he talked about Allah is forgiving and He forgives this and I actually didn't believe him for a long time. I said, you're just saying that, because everybody says it's, there's all this punitive stuff, we're getting told off for everything, and all that kind of stuff. And I actually didn't believe it for a long time, that Allah is love and Allah is forgiving, right? And that Allah is not trying to trip us over. He's not trying to make us make mistakes deliberately. In fact, He wants quite the opposite. He wants to make things easy for us, right? And He doesn't want hardship on us. He recognizes, like if I made 3 intentions to start off Ramadan, if I made one of them reasonably okay, He'll forgive me. I feel confident with that because He knows my intention. But I think in the past I would feel, oh my God, I didn't do it and I made that intention, I'm going to be punished, So I think there's a lot of fear of punishment that still goes around in the Muslim community. But Allah actually wants us, encourages us constantly to try. And even if we fail, to try again and try again. And we really need to remember this in Ramadan. So what are the key things from the Quran in Ramadan? It's an act of devotion to develop our taqwa. It's the month of the Quran's revelation, a time for reflection and guidance. And we're encouraged to do extra supplications because as we heard earlier, Allah is close to those who call upon Him. And the rules are, as I said, it's not a burden. If you're ill, there are concessions for people, who are not able to do it. And if you can't actually do the fast, there's other things you can do during those times which you might find equally challenging other than food. You can give up something, or you can try not to do something during those times. And of course there are things that are obvious that we know that we're not allowed. So these are the sort of key things that we get in Ramadan, that we try to hold on to, that we try to bring into our lives in Ramadan, while at that same time trying to recognize that there are things that we need to let go. So going back to the idea of healing, so beyond this, the idea behind the Arabic word shifa, this is from conference by Sheikh Anima Krazan, quoting her, the Arabic word shifa, healing, considers several different aspects that are interdependent, among them body, soul and spirit of the individual, but also the individual in a healthy community and environment, as well as a healthy relationship with our Creator. That sort of connects to that diagram I showed you, where the self is in the middle. That to connect with that in a positive way is part of our healing. Its aim is salama, completeness, in the sense of the original meaning of the English words health and healing that are connected with the idea of being whole and making whole. You might have noticed that the word salama is related to salam, a balanced, just and harmonious inward and outward state of peace. Quoting Sheikh Halim again, while fasting, we may discover the nobler side within ourselves, our ability for self-control, compassion and generosity. We may become more sensitive for God's favors as He provides for us in so many different ways. And even without any active effort of giving and receiving of our own, we may have the rich, shared experience of fasting and praying and eating together that strengthens our sense of belonging to the community. I just want to add something there that in other kind of presentations I might have done, talked a bit about what actually our social ills are as a community. And there are many, far too many, but I didn't want to go into that today. So therefore, just to say that, again, in this place of Rumi's Cave, we're very grateful that we are given a sense of community, that we can come here. But I think really it's one of the biggest challenges that we have is to create that sense of community more and more, certainly in London and other places. So just a few thoughts on the Prophet's contemplations. And the Prophet, we know, for him, Ramadan was a time of contemplation. So just a few of his hadiths here. Fasting is a shield. So when one of you is fasting, he should not behave rudely or argue. So it's not always easy, but we shouldn't. If someone abuses him or fights with him, he should say, I am fasting. And he also said, when the month of Ramadan begins, the gates of paradise are open and the gates of hellfire are closed and the devils are changed. I always find that really difficult because I realize I have to, what all my faults are, that I can't blame shaitan any longer in Ramadan, right? And the Prophet was the most generous of people, and he was even more generous in Ramadan. So we get an idea of the Prophet's sense of what Ramadan was all about. And quoting Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad on fasting, fasting is an emptying of the ego, a silencing of the body's demands, and a turning towards the one who truly nourishes the soul. This is from a book that many of you may have called Islam in Focus. Fasting in Ramadan develops in a person a real spirit of social belonging, of unity and brotherhood, and of equality before God. And even if somebody is living by themselves and alone and doesn't have many people around, you know that everybody is doing what you're doing during this month. So just that contemplation, in a sense brings you into that world of multiplicity, of diversity that is shared all around the Muslim world. So in a sense, if you look, even if you're alone, if you look inwardly, then and you think about it, you find that you are connected to millions and millions of people around the world. This spirit is a natural product of the fact that when people fast, they feel that they are joining the whole Muslim community, which makes up more than 1/5 of the world's population, in observing the same duty in the same manner at the same time, the same motives and the same end. No sociologist or historian can say that there has been at any period of history anything comparable to this powerful institute of Islam, fasting in the month of Ramadan. So just some reflections now that Islam is very multidimensional, right? And it operates at many, many different levels: the spiritual, social, economic, political, psychological, and these intermix with each other somehow. And generally speaking, we are not always conscious of where one starts and one ends. And it's things like, many of you here make conscientious decisions about what you do with your money, what you invest in, who you're prepared to work for. There's many things that we do and who you socialize with. And these are all conscientious decisions that we try to draw on from the principles of our faith. So therefore it's not just It's not just about sitting and doing dhikr all day long, for example. And any Sufi teacher will tell you it's not just about that, okay? I'm not going to go through all of this because I've sort of said it already, but you can go to Dr. Jamal Badawi's on Islam Online, and you can find what he says about fasting, and he says some of the things that have already been said, social elements, charity, and all of those things. So really, so what we try to experience during this month is a transformation of some sort, okay? And we look to the Prophet ﷺ as our role model for that, okay? So the Quran says, you have indeed in the Messenger of Allah a beautiful pattern of conduct. And when asked about the character of the Prophet, Aisha answered, his character was the Quran. So it's short sentences, ayahs, but what does that really mean to us? To say if the Prophet ﷺ character was the Quran, what do we know from the Quran that we're reading in this month that gives us a sense of his character and what we should draw on it and what we should learn from it? So these are things that when we're reading, we should try to keep it in our minds and try to reflect on. And you know, good character is actually so important. It's so fundamental, and that's why I remember when I was reading the hadiths a long time ago on anger. There was so many hadiths on anger, and I thought, oh. But then, having a bit of a short fuse myself, I got to understand why it was important to have those, connections to not act in anger, right? Because it changes in a sense, our psyche. It changes our ability to be reasonable. It affects the way that we can be of purpose in the world. In a sense, I'd just like to make a little bit of a connection to how we're feeling about injustices in the world, let's say in particular Palestine. And it's a really difficult thing not to be really angry, but just a little note to say, if we allow our anger to consume us, right, then we're not necessarily going to be acting on the thing that needs to be done. And we have to be aware between our desire for justice or even revenge or whatever it is, and what is the right thing to do. And it doesn't mean to say don't do anything. It just means that reflect and think of your character and what you need to be doing in the best possible way that you can do to have a constructive outcome in it. Okay? And we're told that there's balance in all things, and what we're trying to do in this month is that we're trying to create an even playing field, that we came into it tired and exhausted, too much information being thrown at us all over the place of things that we should be doing. But really what it is, it's about finding ourselves and creating a balance for ourselves. And the Quran says we have made you an ummah of moderation, right? Not ummah of extremes, but of moderation. And Allah does not put on a burden on any soul more than what it can bear. And people quote that often, and again, it's one of those things, I didn't believe it for a long time, because you feel burdened. And I think, how can Allah say this when we feel burdened all the time? But then when you realize that we are actually holding on to things that Allah is telling us you don't need to hang on to, right? That, He doesn't burden us with some things. And if we really reflect on it, we can eliminate the things that we are holding on to, which are actually detrimental to our well-being, right? And of course, the advice that we're given by the Prophet, whatever I have ordered you, do whatever you can. And whatever I forbid you, avoid it completely. And I've been reading this book recently where it talks about the Prophet ﷺ when he was taking bayah from people. And when they were giving bayah, and of course they did said what they had to say, he would say, yes, and do whatever you can, right? And I hadn't really heard that before, and I thought, this is the Prophet ﷺ saying to people who've taken bayah with him, yes, do the things, but do whatever you can. And what a lovely advice to be told by somebody in that position, to make you feel that your every effort is worth it. And just again about the character of the Prophet, let's remember him during this month, that Aisha reported that the Messenger of Allah said, Allah is kind and He loves kindness in all things. And she also said, kindness is not found in anything, but adds beauty to it. And if it is withdrawn from it, from anything, it defects it. And we also hear that the Prophet said, he who is deprived of leniency is deprived of goodness. So, just some thoughts about the things that are changing. And sometimes we sort of focus on the things that we don't have and the things that are not happening. But I know in the time that I've been around in the Muslim community, things have changed dramatically in the last 40 years, really, unbelievably. And there are so many amazing green shoots happening in the community. And here, and Rumi's Cave, of course, is just one of them. And some of these things happen here from Rumi's Cave. We're thinking much more consciously about how we start our fast, how we break our fast. We're thinking consciously where we do with our money, and we are, sharing the barakah, and we're trying to be more ethical. So, and conscious of also environmental issues. So we are, as a community, trying to bring back really what Islam is all about, which is about ethics, it's about balance, it's about wholesomeness, really, and to connect at many different levels. And just to say, for example, as I already mentioned, there are a lot of people who are alone during Ramadan, right? And spending time with them or trying to help them. There's a lot of single Muslim parents struggling with a lot of children. How can we help, take away some of their burdens? And in Britain, we have a lot of refugee communities, as well as supporting young people. And I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going to watch maybe after Ramadan that program on adolescence. I'm really concerned about our teenagers, right? And what challenges they face. And also connecting with family. So therefore, these are the things, healing relationships as well. So therefore, these are things that I find it really strange that we talk about Islam, but the people right near us, we're angry with them, our relatives or our spouses or our children, and we are not healing the most important of our relationships. And we have to ask ourselves why, right? And of course, we know that Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. Oops. And the most beloved deeds of Allah are those that are consistent, even if they are small. Okay? So rather than seeing everything as a problem, we should try and see it as an opportunity, right? And I'm not going to go into this because it's really just about our relationships. How do we improve on them? And there's so much that we can draw on that. So Ramadan also gives us the chance to think of something new, right?
Woo! That man fell.
All right.
Yes, bro.
All right.
Yeah, fine.
He collapsed.
And
as you are.
so while we do all this inner work, while we do all this ibadah, while we do this connection, the sadaqah and zakat that we give, all these other things that we do, we have to also, I think at least, that we should try to see it as a time of something new emerging from it as well. And in particular, let's say as Londoners, right, that London is maybe the most diverse Muslim city in the world, right? We have Muslims from everywhere. If you want to find an obscure culture somewhere, you'll find it here in London, okay? And the thing is that do we really know each other? We don't, right? We like to say we're an ummah, we're whatever we are, and we share certain things, but we really don't know each other. And even I would challenge to say in this room, and I can see we're reflected with so many different people from different backgrounds, and also increasingly our younger generation are of hybrid backgrounds. They have mixed backgrounds. You know, how do we understand this? How are we creating a world which is not, from our traditional cultures only, or from a tribal context, or something like that? Certainly in London, we have the opportunity to create communities outside of the norms of people who come from many different backgrounds, and also those people who bring their new cultural experiences into Islam, converts, for example. And so, in a sense, the Ummah, I would describe it a bit like this. We are, all different paths, we come from different experiences, and when, like today, we are sharing a part of ourselves together with all our differences. But when we leave here, we go into another world. So we have to recognize that we live in different worlds, but when we come together as Muslims, we bring something that we share together here. We are coming here at Rumi's Cave because we understand how it operates, we know the philosophy, and when we come here, we bring this part of us to Rumi's Cave, and it strengthens us. It strengthens us in our diversity, in our khidmah, in our hearts being open and everything. But we have the challenge that when we leave here, what do we do when we leave from what we benefit from here? So we need to think about that. And we live in a world where these three things are not necessarily negative, but we've made them negative. We have to learn how to integrate our religious, our cultural, and our secular lives, which we do all of those. And I think certainly for a younger generation who are much more competent than maybe my generation were of operating in these worlds, we have to not make them feel that they're doing anything bad, right? That, you can be in a non-Muslim environment as a Muslim, and that's fine. And you know what the rules are like that. You can be in your cultural group, which maybe is not, has many things that you may find challenging, and that's okay. And you then go into a religious environment. But if you're fortunate, you integrate all of those together. So, but these should be seen as something to move forward with, which are positive. So just some final thoughts. Right? So the Ramadan challenge, it is challenging, and it should be challenging, and we are reconnecting, and we're empowering ourselves as best we can, and we're trying to integrate we're trying to let go of what's not useful, and integrate what we've learned in this month that's useful. And after all, what is being a Muslim about is about building the human potential. So to go from being a vulnerable person to a whole self. And just repeating that Allah wishes for us ease, as He says many times in the Quran. God desires ease for you and desires not hardship. Truly with hardship comes ease. God will assuredly appoint after difficulty easiness. Whosoever fears God, God will appoint for him of His command easiness. God desires to lighten things for you, for the human being had been created weak. So if we read the Quran with that kind of thinking, we know that Allah is on our side, right? That Allah is for us. He doesn't want to, like I said earlier, He doesn't want to trip us over. So He wants us to come to Him, and He's merciful in the steps that we take towards Him. The Hadith Qudsi says, He takes one step towards us, we take one step towards Him, He takes 10 towards us. And as we end, inshallah, on this Laylatul Qadr, oh Allah, bring our hearts together, reconcile between us, guide us to ways of peace, and deliver us from darkness into light, inshallah. And Ramadan will leave us soon, and inshallah may we meet it again next year. Thank you. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I know you're from Sofra Kitchen.
Okay.
Other people, yes.
Okay.
I'm a member there.
Anybody want? I mean, you don't have to ask a question. If you want to share anything, anybody want to say anything? Is there time for that? Is there time for people to? Yeah. So, anybody want to share their feelings or anything like that? Don't have to. Okay. Good.
Sorry, you can sit me, I'm just going. I have to wait to get my shoes.
Yeah, right.
It's been
Yeah. Give me a call. That was nice.
Thank you. Any reflections anybody wants to say? Okay. I'll take you off the hotspot now, it's okay. You can talk now. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Start our work.
10 minutes. You've got 10 minutes to discuss and socialise amongst yourselves, and then it's